We're going to be talking about hyper-personalization, and I want to talk about personalization first. This is something that's existed ever since, for example, your weekend trip to the baker's shop. You have the guy who knows who you are and what you like, and he's saying, is it the same as always? That's been available for a long time, but today there's telemetry, and we have to metrify or make the parameters of clients and follow segments and so on. Important points to mention on this concept, which happens a great deal in our projects. So we have personalization. I'm talking about it as a segment. I'm talking about hyper, I'm talking about real time, so that my experience should change in real time. And for that, we need this. With regard to the interfaces, any system nowadays, any company that wants to personalize needs a channel, which needs a modular architecture to support the tool, and a design system, which makes a lot of difference. We have up to fourfold gain. It needs to have content, 100% of content and data, and we also need to have micro experiences, which is a critical point. We use micro experiences in these projects. So if you think that the app has changed, it needs to be modular, it needs to have a design system, and then it's able to deliver a very hyper-personalized experience. That's the logic. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, we brought someone to talk to you who is going to be our guest here, or who's going to come along with us. This is someone called André Silva, who you can see. Dr. André Silva. He's a physician, he's a young guy. The year is 2079, just to project into the future a little bit. And we're going to follow his financial journey very quickly. And we're going to see hyper-personalization. So first of all, we have a bank, a conceptual bank. We created this at NTT. It's called the Agile Bank, and this is only fictitious, okay? And we sent him this banner. It says, activate your new card. It's a credit card with an agile limit, and it's an annuity that he pays, and he can change the limit whenever he wants. So he's clicked, and this is the banner. It says, record your personal data, basic personal data. We always want to have a funnel so that people can register and be who they are. After this moment, he's read about credit limits, and then how can I activate my card? This is exactly like today, isn't it? It's a very everyday journey, but there is a mystery coming up. With this information, we can segment the person. He's a young adult. He focuses on autonomy, and he wants a card, or he came in with a card without an annuity. Continuing his journey, we then go to an interface which changes. It's a bit like a site architecture. We have 3 places for André to see if he can activate his card. First of all, how does it work? And he'll see an image in a kind of roundabout in a carousel, and it's an educational onboarding explaining what the credit card is and so on. The second slot talks about savings simulation, a number of comparative tables. It's very, very practical and exercises the financial logics. And there's a chatbot to help him get cash back. This is great. He went for the economic simulation, and we opened up 3 possibilities to see if we could hyper-personalize him, because it's not a magic trick. It has components and micro-experiences to be used. It's a segment of 1, but it can be programmed. So there are 3 places. If he wants to reduce tariffs, he'll see a graph and a text explaining how he can make a true savings. If he wants to compare options, there's a table where he can compare 2 or 3 banks to see which card makes sense for him. And there's a chat overlay with dynamic recommendations. So he shares his profile and then he gets these agile recommendations. After this, what happens is we have some other options. The person is in the channel, we can do some marketing, we can look at research, the searches, we can send emails. Would you like to receive more information by email? Or we could, so that's a seed strategy, or he can use BOC, and you'll see why. Because his journey is just getting started. He's come in through the banner, read the information, and clicked, but he's not bought the card yet. And we sent him a message. It's a link for him to access the promotion. He was interested in that. He likes the card. He clicked on it to start to purchase it, but the link didn't open. And we sent a message, activate your card, and the message coming back, invalid, non-valid link. What's good here is that the CX and the analytics personnel, they didn't see this. We don't see that in Google Analytics. We don't know that that happened. So we just think it was a journey that didn't work out. Pity. We sent a step-by-step. We sent him emails for him to purchase the product. He didn't want to. And then we start analyzing, why didn't he, is he not part of the target audience? Was the experience bad or good? But it was a link that didn't work. But the day goes on, André goes home, and in the evening he's looking at his emails, and there's a new email from the Agile Bank. Activate your limit now. Purchase your card. It's the same one he received over WhatsApp not long ago. So what happens then? He's received this message as if nothing has happened. This makes him frustrated, of course. He tried to do it in WhatsApp and he tried to activate it in the email. There was a timeout in the API and it didn't work. So he's decided to start all over again from zero. He downloaded the bank's app and he's going to he says, well, I'm going to purchase it. And then it's complicated. He's downloaded the app. He created a login, put his name into it, his age, birth date, etc., address. And the customer experience seems to suggest that our bank is not listening to him. We send messages for him to talk back to us, and we don't respond. It times out, and this is a problem which has to do with channels. That each channel answers for itself. Most banks have this structure, in fact, web channel separate from mobile, and customers don't get answers. So our first thought for you, for BOC, my colleague is going to continue. Thank you, Elio. So he was irritated, right? The customer was very, basically, there was a lot of friction. He was over-frictioned. So all that interaction in his daily work, and there wasn't an availability, so he didn't get his card. So availability is very important when we talk about the item. And we're going to talk about our BOC. What is a BOC anyway? When we talk about BOC, BOC, when we talk about technology, we have to talk about one very important factor: user experience, business operations center. The customer needs to understand everything that he is bringing into the core. And that's very important. If you look at this diagram, you can see that we've broken it into three. We got XLA and we got SLA. SLA is very common. It's transitional response time. Everyone has their time for delivery and how solutions are delivered on a daily basis. My answer is in SLA. So that's a very traditional model. But when we talk about XLA, then the metrics are very different. You can see we were looking at the customer's behavior, as Elinho said. He was frictioned off because of this. He couldn't begin his journey because something was unavailable on the network, or this lack of availability led to a problem in the app. And when we start to bring these metrics into the core, and bringing metrics into the core of XLA is very different. XLA is very different from SLA. It's very focused on what you require. So I have a customer here, and I bring experience over to the core to understand how the core can work with the metrics on behalf of the user. And the user's vision starts to change. Then they start to see these gains in terms of 100% deliver. So, but what is the BOC? BOC, the word that we hear, everyone's talking about BOC. It's a business operations center. And in our concept, what it means is you leave behind a traditional NOC, it's reactive. And what's reactive can't predict and can't detect what the user needs. But when we work with BOC, their vision is completely different from the point of view of data. Data that we have on a daily basis that we're working on, and they go up steps. These steps are very interesting and very important. You start to have a holistic view. As Eli was saying, you have a vision of that app, the user is using it, and how they go up the steps to receive the deliveries. When we get up to number 5, which is multidisciplinary collaboration, then the person of UX or CX, they understand the metrics where SLA comes along with XLA for a complete journey. And when the journey starts to complete, then you're going from a reactive to a proactive model. They no longer wait for things to happen. I'll give you an example of what I mean. So I've got an investment which has got a threshold and it starts to degrade. And once it starts to degrade, I can work on that. And what that means is that at that moment, we're putting a great deal of number of automations there to understand the degradation of the network and to act intelligently based on AI or agents. What is the response? It's much more proactive. It's no longer a reactive model, where the reactive model is, so the system is down. What do I do now? What's happening is now I see this degradation happening, and the agents start to come in, or the automation. That is interesting, because we have to also address this model, which is known errors. What's a known error? It's post-mortem. Something happened, something stopped, and we learned and understood what the post-mortem was. And then automation process begins, because as soon as we understand what it is, it becomes automation. And then as of the moment that it becomes automation, it becomes more intelligent. So here's an example. I have an agency or a branch, and the router crashed. So what happens is we don't allow that to happen. It kicks in before then. It starts to work on the basis of these proactive solutions. It starts to give answers. What happened? And it starts to, for example, look through layers 1 to 7, looking for a solution. Identifies the problem and solves the problem. So it's an N1 solution to get an operational gain. That's the great difference. If we're going to have a model which is traditional, that's more reactive. We wait for the crash and then kick in. Not in this case. It is a more proactive model to understand the degradation happening, to understand where it could take action. So, for example, self-healing solutions. There's a point where we talk about the concept. Here you can see that the customer is always in the middle. It's XLA. So it's user experience, and in whatever you want to call this flower, this mandala, the design, the schematic is a data-focused user experience, data running the whole delivery. And this is where personalization comes in, as you were saying. A customer who is irritated and annoyed because of the friction, but when he's working with the data, focusing on UX, as Elie said, then this gain comes in. That's right, you see. There are certain situations that we've been working, especially in our CX teams. We've been collecting a lot of business data, collecting what the customer can in fact purchase and acquire. And we can capture, for example, delays at an interface level. So what we, as a BOC, propose, we keep the information in a centralized state. It's not just reactive. When you talk about, let's say, a proactive reaction, I don't know if I can say that, but you can carry out these analyses, and it's much, much more intelligent. It starts to go through all of this process with a complete journey. Let me show you how intelligent it is. When we look at this, none of this would work without governance. We need data, complete data governance from the outset of the journey so that there can be understanding of how we are delivering. And when you look at this, there's another chart here where this is the beginning of our journey. The journey begins, first of all, by understanding what is the need. What is the infrastructure need in order to increasingly work on this detailed mapping? So we're mapping the information in a more and more detailed way to get this information operational gain. Then that means that we really understand the need for an ante-mortem or a pre-mortem and a post-mortem. A pre-mortem is a journey where we are working in an architecture and we understand the architecture in order to achieve maturity of governance. It's a journey. You can see it going from step to step, and it comes in with items that are architectures, which are needs, and another very important point, governance.
We are dealing with 3 points, and in these 3 points, we have the observation. To remember, there is always a saying in infrastructure where we say it's the observation has to be in the beginning. It shouldn't be in the end, because what happens? Sometimes people place it at the end. Oh, I finished it, so let me see the metrics in the observability. To understand this architecture, to see what's necessary, what the doctor needs, and he was irritated. That's why it's so important to see the observability. This is an interesting design. It's a triangle of fire. If we don't have oxygen, heat, and fuel, we don't have fire. The same thing, philosophy and focus on observability. When you have this item, you have to have all the process, governance, tools, and culture. Our daily culture, it's no use going there and saying, well, I have a Ferrari, it stopped here behind me, but I don't know how to drive. So that's what happens with the companies today. They have loads of tools, great tools to be used on the, but they don't have a culture. What happens is it stops having a process created with governance. So you have your car, Ferrari, the Ferrari is on the garage, so you don't have a driver's license. So that's interesting. We have this idea of how much this journey, this delivery brings operating gain. Drawing is interesting for you to think about. I'm going to talk about observability? Do I have a processes in the area? Do I have governance in the area? Do I have a culture to understand what that is? To understand the difference of a traditional monitoring, how much operational gain I have. So this is a gain. This is a difference that we may have every day thinking about that, Dr. Andre. I remember one of the meetings that we had with Mr. John, who was going to take 50 real in the ATM. Yeah, I thought about that. And then he would take the 50 real, and then we started to talk about how much the monitoring observability, focusing on the Mr. John, who was going to take 50 real on the ATM, the solution, the ATM, would have to be available. So we had a very interesting discussion because we joined N1, N2, N3 to understand how much that journey was important so that there would be gain on observability and monitoring, thinking about an operation center. So this is a long journey. We talk about the XLA. XLA starts having this differential, focusing on this experience. It's a little bit outside the SLA of looking at some answers in a next time. When we look at XLA, we look at the experience of the internal user, external user, differentiated metrics that may have gain. When we talk about this watermelon effect, it's green outside, inside it's all right. If you cut it, it's all red. That happens. Let's have an example of this design. Can you imagine we are both here at a bar, at the pub, and then my car alarm rings. So I go there, I turn it off, I come back and say, what happened, Robson? I said, well, the alarm is terrible. It just goes off alone. So why do you have it? So that's what happens on our daily lives, because many companies have too many alarms and little design to work about the data awareness. That's why these metrics are very great when you understand data. And when you are bringing data, you start to automate complete solutions. And in these complete solutions, you can see that we are always pointing to agents, always agents. And that's what is important when it's going to be the core, AOI, it's going to help every day. So who's going to be doing that? The agent. Let's see if we create a health plan for us and also a trade union for us. I think the health plan is good because they will know if they need memory, if they need a disk. That's a health insurance plan. For me, who works at channels in front end, to see the staff focusing on customer experience, but in the end, otherwise we cannot deliver the experience at the end. You talked about architecture. At the front end, we suffer a lot with integrations. There are people in health industry, and they want to schedule a doctor's visit, but then there are many, each lab or each hospital has their own system. So there is an issue about integration, an API that doesn't work. In the infrastructure, that's a great methodology. And that's what's interesting. When we talk about these points, we are bringing entire design of delivery. You have something written, engineering of chaos. Do you know engineering of chaos? Great. Engineering of chaos is the difference from the test. It's a A test or an experiment, we learn with the experiment or the test. The test, you can, it can be either positive or negative. You force it a little bit here. I want it to be more like this or that. But when you're talking about an experiment, it's about knowledge, because when we are working in this experiment, we have to learn more. What's interesting, when we have a load onto a server and we understand how much the doctor had, how many issues the doctor had with the app, because we are placing a load on that piece of equipment so that they can respond. That's our knowledge. When we have that knowledge, we look at the observability, we place an automation, AI agents to have more automatic answers, and smart automations with pure AI. This is our gain, so that we have this differentiated delivery with the engineering of chaos. That's why it's different when we talk about tests and experiments. Experiments are knowledge. I have a platform that I don't know how much is its capacity. The engineering of chaos will help that, because they're going to trace it back to understand the hardware and the software, and they will give you an answer. Just a comment about agents. In the world of CX has dedicated a lot to agentics experience. Even for the infrastructure, when you're going to create an agent, it's very easy. You can create it in 5 minutes. But what we answer is what the user needs. So, like the ATM, if the person is doing a critical operation, is that data real? Is the source reliable, so that they can simulate other things? They can order a different format. They can test other database. So this is critical for us to have alerts, warnings that make sense. They told me, well, quality is part of it. Quality is mandatory. Quality, security. I always say it's quality, security. When we talk about the end value, we talk about availability. The most available the network is, the doctor is going to work well, because he will be doing that journey and he's not going to be irritated at night or to download the app again and start it all over again. So we have this journey, and the part of responsible AI is our daily work. Here, just to conclude, and to have, it's nice, in this point, I have placed there all these reductions. All these reductions have a lot of gain in the beginning. When we are talking about the architecture, when you started playing the journey, you discussed the architecture way back when, and then you look at reducing time, reducing risk, so that they don't stop, to automate more and more in N1, because the more you automate the N1, the faster the response is. Am I going to put an end to N1? No. N1 can become N2, N2 can become N3, and you can have this gain. So the reaction becomes pro-action. In addition to that, we can reduce costs for that service for the customer. We have worked in value stream design. We follow the flow until we get to the accounting, and there are processes that are repeated, there are spreadsheets and integrations that increase the cost for the final user. So this is something to be considered. That's why it's interesting when you're placing all this journey for us to understand how each point of the journey is. I can start at 1 and go to 10. Of course, I don't need to be at 10. I can enter 1 and walk slowly to 2 or 3 and create a complete journey in this design that we have showed you. And Dr. Andre is going to be happier, because he'll have his journey complete and having more availability of the network. And you can differentiate that because the customers talk about BOC. BOC is a business operation center to bring the experience level agreement to the center. If you want, you can talk to us in our booth. We are here to answer any questions. We finished 46 seconds beforehand. Thank you very much for your attention. It's a pleasure.